G'day, my name's Chris. Welcome to Rehabilitating the Dark Elves, Part 4. In Parts 2 and 3 I did a whole bunch of rank and file, enough to have 2 core units. Now I've had quite enough of painting spiky bits in mass, so I'm going to break it up by doing a character for my next unit. And because they're probably not going to keep me busy enough, I don't like sitting around waiting for paint to dry. So while I'm at it, I'm going to paint what will be a Hydra. After I've glued his bits back together. Looks like he had a bad day with a pack of slayers. Anyway, these pieces, I don't really trust the paint that's on them. Morathai, or whatever her name is, it's only black undercoat, but I reckon I should strip it back to get a cleaner finish. It's a character piece after all. And this one, it's in a very sorry state. There are clusters of glue, there's multiple layers of paint that are in a bad form. There's a miniature, the detail's fairly fine to begin with. So I'm going to strip the paint off. That means doing something I haven't done since the 1990s. I'm going to use this. Now, I know there's other things around that can do the job, but it's been a while since I stripped any paint off, and I remember this is the way I did it when I cleaned up an entire Space Marine army from top to bottom and a few other odds and ends. So in it all goes. I've taken Morathai, or whatever her name is, off of her base. Keep that aside because square bases cost money these days, amazingly. And in goes the toxic sludge. Rightio. And I'll seal that up because I've got a inquisitive 3-year-old and I want to have a bit of a running chance of stopping him from getting to this if he ever finds the jar. So we leave that overnight, I reckon. Maybe have a look at it tomorrow. Then break out a spare toothbrush. In the meantime, I've got to look at basing. This is the sort of base that this miniature came on. This is actually from the other one, which is assembled. I've got 2 of these, one assembled and in need of stripping, and the other one, well, that. So I'm either going to have to buy new bases or possibly construct some out of plasticard and balsa wood. But part of the business of rehabilitating this Dark Elf army is finding the bases to go with the old hammer rules and miniatures. Anyway, we'll check in tomorrow, hopefully, once I've got the toothbrush out and we've started scrubbing. Righto, so I've now fished the metal out of the methylated spirits, and I've spent about an hour going over it with a toothbrush, and I have to say it's come up pretty good. I was expecting actually more crud to be left in the cracks and crevices of these miniatures, but that finish that's come out as is more than ample for me to undercoat over the top and paint up without any loss of detail. So that's a highly successful venture. It's worth noting I left it in the metho for about a week in the end. It's supposed to be just overnight, but life events took over as they do. This Hydra I actually thought was going to be the harder one to clean up just because of the sheer volume of paint on it, but this stuff came off even easier, and so I've been having to chip out some of the old glue, which was done without too much drama in the end. These guys cleaned up very nicely, so this is almost good as new, really. So I'll assemble these and paint them up over the next little while. I'll do them together just so I've got a bit of variety between one figure and the other, and so I'm not left there watching paint dry after each coat. That brings up the next issue. I have one base, and frankly it's not in the best condition. So what I'm going to do is make at least one more base, because I need two. I've got two of these models, and only one base between them, and that base is warped and bent out of shape, and I have to scrape all this stuff off of it. I don't think it's going to pan out particularly well. So I'm going to do up some bases from scratch. Now, I know this is the correct base because this is the new version of the Hydra. It's also the same kit for whatever the hell this thing's called, this 8th edition Big Beastie. You can also get in the box set for Cities of Sigmar, whatever the hell the model kit's called. And it's the same size base as the old Hydra model. So I know this is correct according to 8th edition, which is what we're playing these days. Now, I was a bit surprised by the measurements, because I was used to bases being either 40mm or 50mm, but the frontage on this is just shy of 50mm. It's more like about 47 or 48mm, and that's on the bottom. Top is a little bit narrower. I'd probably call that square on 45 actually. So what I'm going to do, so I'll measure up the rectangle, maybe even trace this for the bottom. To build the thickness and have some strength and flexibility, but not have the thing warp, I'm going to use balsa wood for the filler in the middle. I'll give it some thickness. Top surface, some plastic card that I've got quite a bit of this lying around, and I'll have a layer of plastic card underneath, so we'll have a laminate finish, and then if I'm very lucky, the height will be about right as well. Very similar, maybe 1/2 mil out. I can live with that. By the time it's textured up, that won't be noticeable. And part of the reason for using plastic on top is so that when I glue up the top of the base and add some dirt and grass and other features, it won't bend the balsa wood out of form. The balsa wood can be cut to shape pretty easily, and I can sand down the sides a little bit to get that 1mm difference around the sides. So I'm going to move ahead and do that, and then I will check in again once that base is built, show you what they've come out like, and then we'll get on with assembling and painting the rest of the figures. Okay, and here's those two pieces assembled and based. The character's not much to say about it. Basing's come up just fine. I'll paint that up and then put some static flock on it, same as I always do. Assembling this beast was a bit more interesting. So here's what he looks like. This is a very old cast. I do like some of the character on this bastard. And while I was at it, it was such a successful venture assembling this thing and stripping it down, I decided I'd do the other one while I was at it. So these are both my Hydras for the Dark Elf army. They're the different eras of sculpt, and I noticed one thing after I cleaned them up. The colour of metal on this older one is a bit more dull, which has me thinking it might possibly actually be an old lead cast from the earlier 90s, before they shifted to a more of a tin base. I still remember the transition when it happened. They went and sold all of their old stock of lead at I think a 33% discount or thereabouts. So all my mates were stocking up. I don't think you could get away with that anymore. These days it would have to be a product recall rather than a sell all of the lead that we possibly can before we have to change over to a new metal. But those were the days. It's amazing that it took until the early to mid-90s before people realised that the lead content of miniatures might actually be a health hazard. But anyway, we've now got two different eras of model, probably two different eras of metal. And I kind of like it. They've got an old school groovy look to them, which really differentiates them from the new plastic kits, which give you two options. You can build a Hydra or the other thing, but they're both based on the same body and general chassis. So this will give some real character to the army. I only had to pin one piece. I think it was this head here on this fellow. Yeah, you can see a bit of a join there. Everything else glued together just fine. If you're an old gronad like me and you were reading White Dwarf magazines from about 1990 onwards, you would have seen that pinning metal miniatures together was a pretty standard thing. It was kind of like the default practice. That problem went away with the explosion in plastic miniatures, although not fine cast. Weirdly, I had to pin the fine cast Bloodthirster together because that thing had problems. So younger gamers will never know the sheer volume of swearing and glue and green stuff that went into making these miniatures actually fit together and assemble. I don't know how much of a difference the glue it makes today, but just for the sake of argument, this is the stuff that I've been using. Since a mate of mine put me onto this, I've been using it as my standard item. It's pretty hardcore stuff. You can see from these models, it's glued these top-heavy headpieces on this slinky snake-like necks onto the body, and it's held reasonably well. I'm not going to go dropping it to test it. It's not got the same resistance as a plastic model, but it's pretty solid. Same with all these pieces. These are quite sturdy. They're fixed on. I don't know if the older glues necessarily did that. This stuff's so strong that, just to give you an idea of what it's holding together, this is an old, well, not old actually, it's from about 5 years ago. This is a 1 to 2500 Star Trek ship, probably a Constitution class from a game that's based around the TV series. It's been going on for 40 or 50 years. And this is held together with the same kind of glue, and this model is all metal. And I cannot begin to explain to you just how much of a head fuck it was to hold these pieces in place long enough for the glue to do its work. But these ships are very sturdy. Okay, so as for the basing, you recall I was banging on about doing a laminate. It's come out okay, not fantastic. I had thought I'd be able to get it neater than this, but I may have been rushing and stuffing around a bit. It's the right size, it's the right height, it's just a bit lopsided. But I think by the time I've painted everything, based everything, and painted the sides black, I have all my sides of bases black, like the original plastic, but I just paint over whatever is there. Then I think that'll be okay. Won't be very noticeable. This one's got the worst of the two bases, where I chipped away a bit of the material on the edging, but by some good fortune, when I left the basing to dry overnight, just dribbled a bit over the side, and then I'll camouflage it a bit. End result should be fine for tabletop work. I'm not going to try and win any golden demons with this stuff. So yeah, these are fairly sturdy. As you can see, they're flat. So even though I put layers of glue on them and all the sand and so forth, they've not warped. So I'll stick with those. Probably going to be a better finish in the end than trying to rehabilitate the old base that came with one of these guys. Now, a quick note on the grit that I use for basing. Back in 2004, I was renting a house with my girlfriend at the time, and someone had left a big heap of sand and gravel and dolomite and so forth down the side of the house from when they'd been doing some paving some time ago. And I thought, oh, well, that looks good. I'll use that for basing up my my dwarf army that I was making at the time. So I shoveled a whole shed load of it into a bucket, this bucket, and based up the dwarf army with that. And then the wood elf army, which is, the dwarves about 5,500 points, the wood elves are about 4,000 points, another 3,000 points of demons, and fuck knows how many infantry stands for various Flames of War games from World War One, Two, World War Three now. So the bucket's it's about 20% full. So that's 16 years worth of wargaming miniature basing. I think I did a series of hills. My first batch of hills with the same basing. So that's an awful lot of wargaming legacy in one bucket of dolomite picked up from the side of a house. But anyway, that's enough of that. What we've got to do now is spray undercoat these guys. So I spray undercoat in white, just because I've been around since the days when that was normal, before everyone was shifted to black for some reason. So I'll do that, and then I'll paint them up, and we'll have a good look at them once they're done. And now, by the magic of television and some dodgy lighting, here are the finished painted units. We have well, I like to call her Elvira myself. Might try and get some better lighting on this. It's a bit crap. Let's try like, oh, that's a bit stark. Let's try like that. So this one's supposed to be the head honcho's mum, I think, but I'll just use her as a generic mage. I stuck to the core army colours throughout. So there's a bit of blue for just unity, a lot of yellow because it's a character piece, a lot of gold, so those accent colours are very prominent. I've done the cloth in black still. I haven't bothered to highlight or dry brush the black. I'm just going to roll with it just to serve as a kind of almost a blank slate for the detail to pop out of. I've mucked around with a few details to pretty it up. Nothing too fancy in terms of a paint job, but I think for a second-hand army I've been dressing up, it seems to be doing alright. And now we've got the two Hydras. Now the paint came out a little different than I had expected with these. I think I just didn't have enough gradients of blue, so they're coming out a little bit... the difference between the dark blue and the light blue highlight is quite stark. Hadn't expected it to be that stark, but it's alright, so I'll push on with that. Just a note on how I do the teeth and spines and things. Normally I do a dark brown, then a light brown in strips over the top of that, then a white in strips over the top of that, and then blend it all together with a wash, and then just peel the top layer of the wash off to reveal more of the white. For these guys I thought, you know what, it's taking too long, I want to get through the army, so I left out the medium brown, and it doesn't seem to make a huge difference to the end product, so that was alright. As usual, this painting job took a lot longer than I would expect my painting to take, which really comes down to every bloody monster having 5 heads instead of 1. That's some time consuming shit. There's a fucking lot of teeth to paint. On that note, as with all things Games Workshop, every time they release something it's bigger and nastier. The teeth on this fella are absolutely disgusting. If he was on the company insurance scheme, he would not cover this bastard for orthodontistry. They're all over the place. Look at that. Messy as fuck. Die need of braces. In comparison, I actually like the older one because it just looks more gritty, more proportional. Still nasty, but in a very different kind of snaky, organic way rather than the rearing up, choppy way of his mate. Which is, in a way, is kind of more disturbing and possibly scarier. But either way, I'm pretty happy with both of them and how they turned out. I think I'm going to call this guy Spike, and this one can be Spot. Compliments of their various ornamental haunted furniture. Now that I've finished this lot, what we're left with, let's see if I can get it all in scope, is a street legal 1,000 point army. There's a couple more chaps I've painted sitting outside the shot, but that's it. 2 core units that weigh into about 1/3 of the value of the force. A couple of monsters that also weigh in about 1/3 the value of the force, and my maths can't be right because the character's only 25% value of the force. But, you know, point being, it fits the rules and it's gnarly enough to give a bash. So I'm going to try and get a fight in with them later. So that's it. That's the process from deconstruction to reconstruction and painting. I hope you like that. Feel free to hit like, subscribe. Apparently there's a bell, you can hit that thing, and next time I do a video you'll know about it. But for now, I think it's time to call it a night.